So today I'm going to present about sexuality education. It's just because I recently had um, a CEU provided by a professor, and then I gained more interest in sexuality education for children with autism and also like people with developmental disabilities. So before we go into the journals, like I wanted to ask you about what are your experiences? Have you taught any kids about the sexuality education, or did you get training on this before? Like, what's your experience?
For me, I am just starting. I've never because I usually do early childhood, and I'm an early childhood teacher. I've only had one. I'm going to have one experience. So I am planning on teaching her. So she's 14 and she just started her period, and parents reached out to ask how they can um, uh, teach her about puberty. And they are a client in which we are just providing consulting and parent coaching. So it's going to be my very first experience. So I'm really excited that you're going to be
Yay.
talking about this topic. Yay, just in time.
Yay, what a coincidence. Yay. How about you, Tiara?
I once worked with a client. I think he was 11 or 12. I wasn't formally trained on doing it. At the time, I didn't go to graduate school at the time. So we teach him to have a private time. So I think he had that type of urges. Parents usually sent him to a dark room. That's what I hear. But then what we teach is whenever he has that urges, he has to go to either the bathroom or his room, and then with the closed doors. So yeah, and then we just wait, and when he finish, we just check in with him, like, are you finished, or can we come in? And then he would respond, and then we just move on. So I don't exactly know how to, the proper way to train that, but yeah, I'm excited to your presentations.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think this kind of our experience, not trained, but wanting to know is like a global thing. Because even when I try to do some research, like even when I try to find some journals, like it's all about like future suggestions and like how other countries are doing. It's not really about the experimental result or something really solid that we can actually follow. So I think the sexuality education for people with disabilities is in that stage right now. So I think we should be the ones who's leading this and then doing some trainings to make future lives of the adolescents with the disabilities better. Yeah. So when I searched some journals, I really couldn't find much research, like I just said. So it's mostly about whereabout we are and some suggestions and implications. So I got two journals. One is Sexuality Education for Children and Youth with Autism Spectrum Disorder in Canada. I chose Canada because I thought like Felicia, you came from the US, you studied in US, so you would probably know a bit about the US situation. And we are all in different countries, so I thought like Canada would be a good place to look at also. So I chose that one. And then the other one is Social Stories for Sexuality Education for Persons with Autism and Pervasive Developmental Disorder. So it's PDD. So if you look at the date, it's dated back to 2008, which was like before the DSM-5 came out. So that's why it's a bit outdated. But for using the social stories part, this gives us the components of what the social stories should contain. So I thought it would be a good information for us to uh, gain. So I'll introduce these like in order. So I will start with the sexuality education for children and youth with autism spectrum disorder in Canada. So if you look at the Canada provinces, I don't know exactly, but it states here, it says 13 provinces are there, but it has no standardized approach. Each province has its own curriculum, and they don't have much practice, much training. So though like we say for people with disabilities, we should have an IEP, like the individualized plans. These are not obtained for children with autism for the sexuality education. And the educators also, they have insufficient instruction, and they themselves lack appropriate training for the sexuality education for children with autism. So though they have like a very positive attitude towards the ASD people, and they try to include all the students in one class and try to have full exclusion, it's not actually guaranteed in Canada until 2019. So I don't know the trend, and I don't know how it is in the 2024, since like 5 years have passed, but back in 2019, that's what they concluded. So like I said before, though they don't, the 13 provinces don't provide a unique like one curriculum, these kind of issues, like this kind of issues come in elementary grades and grades from 7 to 12 grades. So during elementary grades, so that's about when until the kids are 12, at school they learn about these 6 areas. So the correct anatomical names, the correct names, and the correct body characteristics, the hygiene part, puberty part, and about how family structures are and how to create healthy relationships. And after that, after they go over 12, so above 13, they learn something more about the sexual relationship and things like uh, reproduction, sexual assault, and sexual health. It's more related to like the sexual relationship part. So that's what they learn. And like Felicia said, like there's this puberty part, the big part. They try to teach this in the early stages, and then people say try to educate them as early as possible. It's not making them get into more sexual behavior. It doesn't make them get interested in those behaviors. Rather, it's like giving them the correct information so that they could have appropriate behaviors ready when they actually go through the puberty process. So all the educators say just try to educate them as early as possible. So some facts about puberty is that some people with autism could go through some symptoms while having pubertal changes like seizures, depression, anxiety, etc. And learning the proper terms for the body parts is important because it's also related to accurate reporting when they have been involved in an abuse or assault case. And it's also about developing the sense of self. So that's they say this, the learning the proper terms, not like the baby words, but the actual terms that could be used formally is also important. And also the other important part is, as we all know, like learning what the private behavior and public behavior is, and also what the setting is. So um, where they place that could be also sometimes public and sometimes private. So learning the slight difference and then learning the details of what private and public consists of would be important. So one example that I've learned was like the setting. Like we usually say our bedroom is where the private setting is, and then where they could do the private behaviors. But consider if there's like a lot of people outside the bedroom, and then like it's full of people, and then the bedroom also there's someone inside. Though the bedroom was um, explained to the ASD people as somewhere private, the setting could make it different and make it a kind of a semi-public place. So considering those kind of details would be also important. And then we go through the relationships part. So the relationships part is also very important because one of the ASD symptoms for them to get the ASD title is about the social reciprocation part. So learning the social reciprocity, and there's sensory issues too regarding like if they have intimate relationship, there could be the sensory issues. So they should learn about this in advance so that they could be aware of it before it happens. And also, there's the part about consent. So, the consent part, it's usually related also to the intimate relationships, but it says here that you can teach it as early as possible, and it could be through age appropriate lessons, like even sharing toys and offering and accepting like hugs with parents or with other people. It is a thing that will be with consent. So people should actually practice giving those consents in an early age. Um, and then here it says like knowledge, giving them knowledge is very important, but actually what we usually do is like ABA is about skill building, right? And then making them do it in the actual moment, right? So knowledge and skill building goes together. So they say like initiating friendships, reading social cues, how to flirt, initiating and establishing boundaries, discussions about sexual consent, and then there's the okay touch and then the not okay touch. So these kind of things are kind of the mm, like small things to work on in the relationships part. And then they say lastly there's the gender and sexual diversity part. So they say what's very dangerous is that thinking that the people with ASD, all the population inside will be heterosexual. I know like we have like different religions and stuff, but it's like something a bit away from that. It's like about the science. So they say it's like we shouldn't be having judgments that they are heterosexual. It can result in restricted access to important sexual health information. And actually, like a few years ago, I actually saw a journal that ASD people are have higher ratio of some kind of, I don't remember. Was it bisexual
You tend to
things?
be more gender diverse.
Yeah, right? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I I saw some research about that, so we shouldn't assume that they're heterosexual. And then this is important because it's directly related to some sexual health issues like some issues like HIV that can be um, transmitted through the sexual intercourse and things. So this information is very important. And they say confidentiality must be respected when discussing gender and sexual diversity, saying that though they shouldn't be just outed by giving them sexuality education and then inform to their parents about it just because they are their guardians. So this should be always considered. And then the curriculum that breaks down stereotypes, respects confidentiality, and promotes self-identification. It's not only for the people with ASD, but it's also needed for all the students. So these three areas are the things that the Canadians think are important parts of the sexuality education. And they give us the practice recommendation. So they say use social narratives, use visual materials, use opportunities for repetition, use modeling, which is kind of obvious for us who's doing ABA. And so what I want to go into now is the part about the social narratives, so that we can use it in our practice. So this is the second journal. So it's social stories for sexuality education for persons with autism and pervasive developmental disorder. So they say typical sexuality education programs, there are like concrete education programs for the typical ones, but they lack understanding about the ASD features. And so it's hard to adjust to people with autism. So what these people thought was that if we use social stories, it could be a bit more adjusting for the ASD population. So they explain about the social stories. So it's something developed by Gray, and it was first used to explain how to play games with peers with for the ASD children. And it's typically written in these ways, like they have first person singular and then in a positive term, not like do not do this, do not do that. And then when these social stories are made, it's usually made for that individual, not to use like among all the people. It's very specific to the person using it. And so what they should check is that if you make the social stories, then you should check with your client whether it really is comprehensible for the client you're teaching. So check comprehension using the question and answers. It could be a fill in the blank or you could give choices, but you should always check whether they can actually understand. And and then the social story is acting as a kind of a tool to um, teach sexuality more easily, but it should be faded out so that you can use the elements that are used in the social story, but carry it out so that it can be used in the everyday life. So if you use the book, then you can take out some of the parts, important parts with the pictures, and then make the kid carry it around and then try to fade it out so that it's more applicable in the daily life. And then if
Can
some
I ask a
skills,
question?
yeah,
Just a quick clarifying one. You mentioned fading out the social story. So there was an. I'm just trying to rephrase what you said. So you were saying that the kids are carrying it around, and then that was the understanding that the kids would carry it and around, and therefore they needed to be faded out, or Did I misunderstand some?
No, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. So they teach through the social story, but it isn't that they should carry it around, but they need like some visual cues to actually remember and then apply it sometimes, right? So like when we carry around the cards that they need to always keep in mind, those kind of things.
So it's the visual prompt that needed to be faded out.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. I think.
Yeah, and then to do some parts well and they need to add some new things, you can do that, and then you can just refine it as um, by seeing the kids progress. So it's like more like having the shaping inside the social stories. So they said there is like six um, sentence types inside the social stories. So one is the descriptive one. I put a under bar under what it is. So it's like giving them the social situation, what situation it is. And then the directive one gives them information about what is the appropriate behavior, how to respond in that situation. And the perspective part is giving them the social reciprocity part, I guess. So telling them how the others are feeling, on how the others are responding, or actually telling them what the student actually is feeling inside. So giving them a little perspective about the situation. And then there's this affirmative part where they tell where they teach them about the a shared value or opinion within a culture or a community so that they could understand about the community more. And then there's the control part where they kind of give cues about how and when to use the behavior. So they give this control part, and then there's this cooperative sentence where they describe about how and what the others will do to help the students um, achieve this behavior or do this behavior or how to get through this social situation. So that's the things, sentences that they will use inside the social story. Once it was said that there should be a ratio of how the sentences should be, but then in this journal, it says it's not actually like proven about the ratio. So I just put that part out and then I'm showing just what kind of basic sentence types there are. So they say that for the sexuality education specifically, it's not proven that the social stories are effective, but social stories in general is getting like more empirical evidence that it could be used, and I think it's now one of the scientifically proven ones that are um, effective for the students with ASD. So it says here that empirically established good practices in social stories are like the task analysis and the presentation and practice of small explicit steps. They use visual aids. They have modeling inside. Tend to review and guide practice. They do corrective feedback. They independently have they have independently accessible reminders like the ones that I said about fading the prompts, and then opportunities to practice in and out of training. So they say the social stories for the sexuality education could also be effective because they have these um, components that are already known as established practices, empirically proven practices. And this is the since we haven't seen much of how to create social stories, they gave us some examples. So I got two for us. And what I wanted to do was, since we went through the six sentences, six sentences, so we can try to discriminate which ones are which for the second one. This the first one is like, my name is James. Sometimes I think about sex in private areas. It's okay to think about sex in private areas. I will try to keep my thoughts to myself. This is very important. I may ask mom or dad a question if I'm confused. So from this social story, I thought, like, I think about sex in private areas. Like, this is the descriptive part and then the control part. Because the control part is like, this is the time when I should use the appropriate behavior. And descriptive part is because it's like the explanation about the situation. And then the it's okay to think about sex in private areas is like giving them the affirmation about the about what was it? About the shared value. Yeah, about the shared value and from the community. So it's giving the affirmation. Then there's this part where I will try to keep my thoughts to myself. So it's something that they should do. But this part, I think it because it's controlling what they are thinking about. It's not really explicit behavior, but this is the part where they um, give the directive sentence for them to do something. And this is very important. It's also affirmative for them. And then lastly, I may ask mom or dad a question if I'm confused. There's the directive part, and also it could be the cooperative part and tell the kid, the ASD client, about what the parents will do. So I thought, like, this is my thought process. And then I wanted to go through the second one together. If you could participate, I will give you the definition again here. So if you could read first.
So do we dissect each sentence?
Yeah, it was kind of hard for me too because it's like my first practice also. So I wanted to check with us together and then see if we can use it later.
So maybe it's okay to have an erection or hard on while at school. That would be affirmative.
Affirmative, yes. And would it also be descriptive one?
Yeah, because erection. So the erection part and hard on, that would be descriptive,
Mhm.
right?
Uh-huh.
Then the next sentence, when this happens, I will ask the teacher to be excused to go to the bathroom. That would be directive.
Yeah, I agree.
And cooperative?
Mm.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I will not talk to others about my erection. This would also be directive, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think this part is inevitable to use like the do not do something.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I know that this is a private thing and it is natural. That would be affirmative again. Erection happens to all boys at some time. That would be
Affirmative?
yeah. Mm, I'm wondering, are we Are we missing a cooperative somewhere?
I think we had that cooperative in the second sentence.
Yeah. And I don't think all the sentences are included, but
Okay.
we can find. I don't know the last sentence. Is it?
Yeah, the last sentence,
I don't know where it belongs to.
I was thinking maybe affirmative. Like, it
Oh, yeah.
happens. It
Yeah, yeah.
happens to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm.
even descriptive. Would it be?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that's the end of the presentation, I guess, with one more slide about how to, how to create the social stories. There should be like some components that we can look through. So they have this 3 skill area. One is health and hygiene, the other one's relationship, the last one is about self-protection and self-advocacy. So as you look at the first two, it's kind of something similar to the ones that they had in Canada. So, and in that skill area, there's this social skills components. So in the health and hygiene ones, they talk about gender differences and maturation. And the earlier ones they should do teach is about everyday and sexual hygiene, health and wellness, masturbation, body and disease. The one about HIV prevention and STD is something that they could do a bit later, and the birth control part also. In the relationship part, the friendship and intimacy, talking about the boundaries is something that they could start earlier, and responsibility to partner, something that they could do later. Family types and roles is the ones that we talked about in the family construction part in the earlier journal, and then the feelings and expression part they have, and the dating and marriage, parenting, sexual orientation is also included. Some other ideas for self-protection and self-advocacy, they have protection against abuse, sexual feelings, sexuality as a positive aspect of self, about the intercourse, something that we learned about okay touch and unokay touch, and the public and private behaviors, and also the settings, decision making, and the things more about the condoms and personal rights. Yeah, reduction of fear and myths, saying no to non-consensual sex and sexual discrimination part. So there's in this part, it's a bit of a mix of what to teach earlier and what to teach later, but they are giving us the general idea of what to use as a curriculum for the social stories. So yeah, this is the end, and
This
we
is really
can.
great. I'm just going to copy paste this and ask my client which one we should focus on. This is great. This is
Oh
like
yeah, yeah, that
yeah,
would be great.
awesome. Thank you, G. And this is like right. This is exactly what I need. Thank you so much.
All right, Tanya, have you had any experience? Hi, yeah.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, so I used to work with teenage boys or men up to age 22, and then we did a lot of education regarding masturbation, like masturbating safely, because if we don't do that, they like hurt their private area. But it's so interesting to see like social stories being part of the treatment package because like having visual cues, that's interesting because I think what we did back then was like just not modeling. It's hard,
Yeah,
right? Like how do
modeling
you
is hard.
model? But I think like the male BCBAs used to like teach them like in person with the parents.
Mhm.
So yeah, it is a hard it's a hard topic.
Question. So did the male BCBAs coach him through it? Coach the client through the entire process of masturbation? Is that what you mean with the parent?
So it depends if the parents are comfortable with it or not. Obviously, the parent will be there,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
So
Or
we're
you
talking
could
live
use
modeling.
you could use like I've had teachers who used like sex toys. So I had a professor who specialized in like sexual education for special needs, and he used to go to the sex store a lot just to buy like the fake private area body parts. And then they would like teach how to put on a condom using it, and then like how to masturbate correctly, things like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think this topic is really cool, Gian. Like, I'm glad you picked it because even with the topic of sexual health and sort of like that, I've heard stories where when we don't teach teens how to masturbate correctly,
Mhm.
you know how they like some of them can suffocate themselves just to like feel extra pleasure, right? Because
Oh.
when the oxygen is less, the the feeling is better. So
Mhm.
I've heard stories from my professor that when it's unsupervised, those things can happen. Then you would have to find replacement behaviors with like sex toys and things like that. So this is really cool about the
Mhm.
social stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have
Mm.
a question, maybe not pertinent to the presentations, but from you guys' experience, what's the recommendations to start teaching the sexual educations that, you know, related more into the puberty, like masturbations for boys or girls? Like,
Hmm.
what are, yeah.
So recently, I told earlier that I had a CEU course from a professor. Like she's been like teaching IDD and ASD people for over 40 years. So what she says is just try to teach them as early as possible, but the contents is important. So the contents shouldn't be like very explicit in the first place. Like they don't need to know all the details about the puberty part and stuff, but they can start with like how families are constructed, like how their moms and dads were little, like showing them photos, and then how they grew up so they can see how the body changed, right? So seeing those from very familiar people, from seeing them from the family is can be the first place to start. And then like having, she also talked about having some um, what do you say, having a part in the family also is important. Like having a role in the family is also important. I don't know how it relates directly to the sexuality education, but then getting to do those roles can teach them about the importance of self and stuff so that they know more about like how their body and everything is, like how the self is very important. They can start from that from the early age. And then there's the parts about the learning about the body parts, like learning the names. Those can be like, it takes time to learn like the words and stuff and then actually to identify. So those parts I think they can be started as early as possible.
And when you say roles in the family, does that mean like mom, dad, son, daughter? What do you mean by roles?
The roles that they do inside the family, like just helping chores or things like that. Yeah, yeah. hmm But I
Sorry, say
thought
that again. Roles in the family, you were breaking up.
the like doing chores inside the family, like having a role as a family member.
Oh, like the titles, like you're the father, the mother. Is that what you mean?
No. So giving them something to do as a family member, like cleaning up the dishes or things like that. Yeah. But working as a family, you are one of the family member, like making them acknowledge that more through their experience could be something that they can start off with. Because there's the part about the family part, I think. So it relates to how the like intimate relationships can get into like a can form a family later, and then like how they become a big family, things like that. I think it can be connected to online.
Mm,
Mm.
That's great. Thanks.
that's interesting.
Mm.
Mm.
But the part about using their parents' photos and then showing them like how they grew up, I thought that part was cool. So it's something that we could use also.
So how the parents grow up and sort of like meet each other, or like
Yeah.
how the client grows up.
So how the daddy wasn't always like that tall.
Right,
Daddy
right.
was
So yeah,
also like a toddler and then grew up. They have all the
met
photos,
mom,
right?
they were dating. That's so good. That's so good. Thanks.
Yeah. So they can learn about, okay, so when I go through puberty, I will grow up, I will have the mustaches, I will have like things like that. Yeah. They can learn that easily, like
I like
accept that easily. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You guys know any
Sorry.
resources? Oh, sorry, Tanya.
No, go ahead. Go ahead,
I was
Tiara.
wondering if you guys have any resources like video instructions, like for generic ones, for maybe resources for us to can give parents if they have concerns about this. Any language would be, well, preferably English, but
Yeah, probably English.
yeah. Do you guys have any experience with that?
In Korea, there's like some governmental resources that are coming out for ASD people, but like it's in Korean. But I guess in English there should be many out. Yeah. I've seen one from the Vanderbilt. I think I saw one from Vanderbilt. Yeah. Have you, Felicia, seen it? No?
No,
You're
actually,
from Vanderbilt, right?
yes.
Yes.
No, but I went to the early childhood education, but no, I've not seen it. Yeah, talking about the language, because this is some of the issues that are talked about in Western literature, um, might have some topics that are very sensitive, especially for highly religious Asian
Yes.
countries.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I wonder, because yes, I've read about the that neuro people who are neurodivergent, they tend to be more gender diverse.
Mhm.
And that needed the kid with autism needed to know that, right? To sort of like have that affirmation. I just don't know how to get parents buy-in. Any language example to help with that.
But actually, from my first journal about the ones about the Canada,
Mm-hmm.
it also states that like in Canada, parents who are very religious, they find it hard to persuade them to get the sexuality education, and they're actually excluded from those education at school. So it doesn't really state how, it just says it's like a global problem, maybe something hard to deal with. Any ideas? I have no idea for that one.
I wonder if we can tie it back to like values. So, for example, I don't know, guys, this is from my brain, not from research. But I wonder, you know how some kids, if they don't masturbate, it might lead to problem behavior, or masturbation might be their only way of emotion regulation, things like that. And then I wonder if we can tie it back to like the family's value. If the family's value is for their child to be happy and for them to be calm, maybe we can like, oh, but this is one of the ways they do it. I don't know. So like have them think which is more important. Maybe that's one of the ways we can talk about it.
Mhm.
Mm.
So like that is more of like a reactive type though, or instead of a proactive, right?
Oh.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right.
I mean, yeah, yes. I think I agree. I think parents, instead of having the kid ruin, destroy everything in their house, I think that would probably, it's much easier to get their buy-in that way, right? But I think since we talk about how we want to teach them as soon as, I mean, as early as possible, I think we are also indirectly advocating for proactive solutions, right?
Mhm.
I once had this talk with a psychologist. She had an autistic boy, and she's also a psychologist. So she told us that at first, when she talked to parents whose kids are autistic, and they talked about problem behaviors and stuff, she usually talks about the age first. So if the child is approaching the puberty, then usually she starts with, remember when we were young, and we have that romantic, we like some people, and then we feel butterflies and stuff like that. And with people with autism, it's the same thing, but even without that feelings, they also have already difficulties for self-regulating and stuff like that. And so I think I don't know how to say it properly, but I think the psychologists really, the way they talk to parents may helps us to get the plan. Like I don't know if it's related to the RFT model. When we're I don't know what I'm talking about, but the reflection part and stuff like that, going back to values, the one that Tanya talked about. I think it might help, but eventually, I know that some parents still opted not to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I have a question regarding the religious part, because I don't really know. So parents, they didn't get education also? Is it that way? Or because like they are the same beings like ASD people. It's just that some part of the developmental areas are delayed, but they have the same kind of needs, and it's something very natural. But is it specifically for the whole sexuality education part, or is there a extra barrier for the children with autism or children with disabilities? That's my question. Like for the religious part, is it for all, or does it have more barriers for the children with disabilities?
I think kids with disability, their urges are probably it's probably harder to mask than typically developing kids, right? And so parents might be a lot, there are more opportunities or probability that parents are embarrassed with the child masturbating, say in public, or not able to contain their urges, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there is that other level of aversiveness, I think, for parents to. So instead of, I think parents have tried to punish that behavior. I think a lot of parents would try to punish that behavior, but unfortunately, because it's automatically reinforced, it's hard to to punish that behavior. And I think hearing from professionals like us saying that you should let your kids masturbate, I think it'll go against everything that they have hold dear. I think they want something to they seek our guidance to sort of stop this behavior from happening, and yet say this is how you do it properly. And I think that's probably the challenge. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so maybe it's like because they have this disability and they have some other problematic behaviors also. They see the like puberty coming behaviors also more of a problem behavior kind of thing. And
Yeah, I
so
think so.
that's some barrier that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So then I think, like, I personally think, even in Korea, even for people all around the world, I think we don't know well about the sexuality education part either. And probably most people would know like about the same amount as we do. So I think having more education ourselves and talking more about it and having the, what do you say, our knowledge and of
Disseminate. What are you talking? Is that the
I
word
don't
you're
know the word, but maybe we should have a different affirmation from the cultural like group about sexuality education. And it doesn't come like just from one or two seminars or workshops or anything. It should be like spread out. Like the words should be spread out more. And I just wonder where we can get the sexual education training. Like who should be
Oh,
referred to?
oh, are you talking about clients or us?
Us. Because
So,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No.
Anio, you were saying something, right?
No, I wasn't talking.
Oh, I thought you were. I saw some that I thought, wow, like the title of this webinar is definitely thought provoking. I'll try to find it for you. Hold on. But I saw a couple. It was how to teach how to teach your client to masturbate or something, and I'm like, I need to take that.
Mhm.
Oh, share it in the group file. I want to see
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Right. Oh, and because Tiara mentioned one thing, like I want to share one more thing from what the professor said. The professor said to do it as early as possible, ongoing, and repeating is important. But what you should consider is their age and their developmental stage and their intellectual abilities. Like it's something that we already know, but just to express it one more time.
I just shared it in.
Okay. Wow. Thanks.
Cool.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. That's vulva masturbation.
Okay. Is there
Yeah,
anything else that we want to share?
here you go. Anal masturbation. There you go. So, 4 very challenging courses.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Wow.
Right. If there's anything else you want to talk about, or we can wrap up for today.
This is excellent, GN. I loved it. This is so great. I think we should talk about sexual education more.
Agree.
Yeah, agree. Me too.
Especially like if we can talk more about like the parents part, I think that would be nice too.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
It's always hard to have those conversations, you know, because on one hand, when I was thinking about what you guys were saying, it's like it's part of their, you know, how evidence-based practice is like culture and values, and then clinical expertise, and then like research based. Essentially, like them being not okay with masturbation, it's part of their values, so we should be like affirming that. But at the same
Mhm.
time, so it's hard, you know, and I would love to just brainstorm more on how to navigate those things with you guys.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, values. Values, it's really hard.
Really hard. Really hard. Yeah.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, GN. That was really nice.
Yeah, I'll send you guys the Google form later so you can put in for the CEU certification, and we'll meet later in September again. Okay.
Okay.